Hi, this video is going to take about 15 to 20 minutes and it's aimed at people who don't see AdWords accounts on a daily or regular basis, and where you've got either a prospect or a customer that's at varying stages in their understanding of how well their campaign is doing. They may be blissfully unaware, or they may be very sharply aware that things could be better. So primarily, this video is aimed at people, account managers, account directors, who have the responsibility to advise clients about opportunities that can be found when looking in Google Ads. So kind of let's start right at the beginning. Oh, before I actually go through the whiteboard, I'll let you know that I'm going to add on to the end of this video a series of screen views with my commentary looking at what I consider to be an account which has got a lot of opportunities, ones which seem to be doing well, and then one which I think is performing optimally, so that you can get familiar with what an AdWords dashboard looks like and feel very familiar and confident when asking people, do you know this or that, where to direct them to if they haven't been there for a while. Okay, so let's start. Let's ask the question from the off, have you got a live ads campaign? Now, when we're dealing with the kind of clients that we've got, in the main, they may well have had a campaign and stopped it for some reason. So we could explore that. And when you look at my videos using an exploratory model called specifics, you can ask how come, what kind of issues or problems have you had in the past, and then explore that through with them. At the end of that, you'll either decide, look, this is not for them, it's just not a business model or a route to market that's going to work, or you can perhaps agree a new start with a fresh look and a fresh pair of eyes. Let's spend a bit more time on this. If they say, yes, we have got a campaign that's running, do you know what? The first thing I do, rather than get into the details of the data, is I go and take a look at the ads. I'll go to the ads campaign, I'll either look at ads preview or I'll go to the ads themselves, and I'll ask myself the question, if I were a target customer, would I be compelled to click that ad? So are the ads compelling? Does it describe my problem? Does it provide a hint in the few words that are involved? I'm talking about search for the moment. Is there a hint there how it could solve that problem for me? And is it asking me to do something like make a call, fill in a form, get in touch? Is there a call to action? Then we'll get through to see this next bit, which is where we start to dig into the detail around the things which really matter. And I've said it before in other videos that Google themselves will say the majority of campaigns, paid search campaigns that fail, have one thing in common: that the people that set the campaign up or adopted the campaign have not set goals. And there aren't many goals to set. It's either, as you can imagine your experience, if it's e-commerce, it's going to be a sale. If it's a business-to-business lead generation, it will be a completed form that's been filled or a request for a quotation. If the telephone's involved and people like to take stuff down on the phone, then it will be tracking calls. And if they want to actually capture people at the top of the funnel, like buying a new house, it may be a download of a brochure. And all of those are goals which can be tracked and an indication of where people are in their buying funnel and where therefore you can place your efforts to actually get them to the action stage of your particular sales funnel. And when we look at what's important here is, how do we know that a goal has been triggered and captured? Well, for sure, Google Analytics has to be set. Is analytics linked? Are the goals set within AdWords and in Google Analytics? So that we can ask the business-like questions: how's the campaign performing? How are you currently measuring that? And do you know what's working, what's not working? Now, these are really fundamental questions, and just because they're fundamental or simple, don't overlook them. every time I think that one should go into an account, we should always presume that things have changed, and we should always be asking the kinds of question, how have things changed since we last met, not if they've changed. And of course, when you ask these questions, and if goals haven't been set or analytics hasn't been linked, they're likely to say, nah, it just feels busier, or revenue's up. So they might have some measure of goal achievement, but it won't be formalised and captured in the way that we could do something with that to look for an opportunity. So the kind of metrics that we'll be looking for when I show you on the screen shares will be how many conversions, where did they come from, which campaign, which ad, which search term, what time of day. And you can see, it's almost like being a detective all over again, isn't it? If we can actually nail it right down, we can say with confidence where the opportunities are. I always like to state this in the positive, because although all of this could be used to question another agency's capability or attention to detail or amount of time they spend on one of our prospects' accounts, let's just ignore that for a minute and say that that's a given, isn't it? If you can actually find an opportunity and another agency hasn't, let your prospect or customer fill in the missing gaps. So conversions, cost per conversion, and the structure of the ad campaign to match how the website functions is going to be key when we check. Let's go through to the next stage. And then ask the question, look, you've got a campaign that's running, analytics and goals have or haven't been set. How's it performing? Is it performing well? And if they say yes to that, we can actually say, great, can't we? We can say, great. How do you measure that? How do you know it with certainty that it's performing well and that it can't perform any better? That's the key, isn't it? I mean, there's a vanity and a pride associated with one's own company. And, you know, they may not like to share that it's kind of a bit not performing as well. But if we give them the opportunity to say, where do you think it could be performing better, and what kind of metrics can we use, then we can ask business questions like, are you maximizing all the potential opportunities? Because we know inside AdWords there's a set of beautiful dashboard reports that show very graphically how we're doing in a league against our competitors. That's called Auction Insights. And we can also look at what we're missing out on when we think about what we want more of. And so lost opportunities. I'm going to show you how easy it is to create a table report inside Google AdWords, Google Ads as they're called now, which is called, I call it a lost, an impression share report, which shows the loss that you've experienced, either due to ranking, which is to do with the quality and quality score issue, or to do with budget, simply not spending enough to actually be being shown, and being shown in a prominent way where people can then go click. So there we can question. And then we're thinking about growth. And they say performing well, let's say yes, then, you know, we can follow that yes question, answer through with, that sounds good. Are all products and services and locations optimized for growth? Now, typically, when a company with a range of products and services takes on paid search or display or shopping for the first time, it can't do everything in one go. Just think about a DIY wholesalers with the thousands of SKUs that they've got. Typically, somebody will have said in the past, or should have said in the past, what area, if we could only focus on that, will give you the visibility of either how it's doing and hopefully some quick wins. And typically those will be product groups which have been ignored, and ones with a high gross margin, so that with a few wins, a few extra sales, it soon shows that the campaign is capable of generating additional profit. And of course, we're again back to that figure that goes over and over for that product range. What's the cost of acquisition, and what's the gross profit you like for a single sale? And let's forget lifetime value for a minute. But every time we ask the question, it's related to a product group. It's very difficult for an organisation which has a wide range of products to be so general about the profitability across the board, in other words, the average, and even more difficult for them to say what are they prepared to pay. In other words, the cost of acquiring a new sale, that's a difficult one too. So let's make it easy. Let's just chunk it down for them. And then we can talk about which products and services have they not yet fully exploited. Which areas and locations have they not yet expanded to or fully exploited? And are the goals, are the calls to action that were appropriate in their existing campaign, let's say that's a telephone call, are they still appropriate for these new growth areas? Or should that be considered should we change that? Should that be an inquiry form? Or should it be a download and a coupon? Or, these are the questions which are up for grabs. What works in one sector of products isn't necessarily going to work in another sector of products. And if people say yes right the way through to all of that, we can still question it. And it's not a catch, it's not a deceptive question. If it's performing well, and that all products and services are optimized for growth, and they say yes, we can say, that's amazing. I mean, really? Why don't we check that? Because we've got ways of checking to see if you are missing out on opportunities based on what your competition is currently active with. So just before I finish this video, I'm going to show you a list of 10 items which I'm going to review in those 3 examples when we look at the screen sharing. So we're going to look at the overview of the account. We're going to look at notifications, which is that little kind of bell in the top kind of right-hand corner with a 1 or an exclamation mark to say, hey, Google's noticed something which could be improved. It might even be an email, but generally it's about improvement. There's a great new area now which is in the new version of the ads interface, which is called recommendations, and it's a beta test for something they called optimization score, and it's out of 100, it's a percentage score, and it will show very clearly how you're doing. So you'll see campaigns which are at 60%, 80%, and some over 90%, which I'll show you immediately following this video. And then it will discuss how you can add incremental percentages to optimize. Just think how powerful that report could be. Just that one section alone, when quickly looking at either your prospects on the MCC or your clients, because we can get those reports via your digital account manager. We can quickly find out how they're doing and where there's opportunities for them. We're going to look at change history. This is really important if the account is a prospect and being run either internally or by another agency. You'll see an example I'll show you in a few minutes, which hasn't been looked at for 3 or 4 months, and it will show you specifically the time, the date stamp, who did it, and what they did, and you can see the kind of activity which adds value. We can look at the settings and how that's connected to Google Analytics. Very quickly, we can tell if a Google AdWords account has been connected to the overall capturing bucket, which is Google Analytics, showing where all leads and traffic have come from. AdWords is only one referral channel, isn't it? And then we can look at the reports. I'm going to show you how easy it is to actually go to reports, select a table report, select a campaign or an ad group, whistle right the way down to the bottom of the pick list as you drag and drop, and go to competitive metrics and drop in search impression share, and then loss due to budget, and then loss due to rank, and then very quickly see where there are opportunities, either by spending more or by improving the quality of the experience, which typically would be down to quality score. We're going to look at auction insights, and this is going to be good for figuring out what your the brand's online competition are up to, where you're at on a variety of different metrics. Then we're just going to do a sense check. This is a kind of does it all make sense? I'd like to set the settings at my overview, my top level dashboard. I'm not really that interested in impressions at all, or clicks. What I'm really interested in is the click-through rate Is it 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10%? In other words, considerably better than the industry average. And I'm interested in conversions. I'm interested in the cost of acquiring that conversion and then the overall spend. So those are the kind of the sanity metrics that we'll be talking about. Just before we finish, I like to very quickly, if it's seasonal business, use an opportunity to compare one period with another very quickly inside Google Ads to show how's it going compared with this time last year. And retail, always what year-on-year figures or period-on-period figures, or because that's how they measure their metrics. So that's how they measure whether they're in decline or growth. And finally, I haven't left it to last for a reason, it's just that I remembered it last of all, but it's a big one. It's key search terms trigger keywords, trigger ads to be displayed, trigger ads to be clicked on, to go to a landing page, which should explain further why this person should be considering or buying from your client. Quality score that's been associated with those keywords and those settings with that landing page kind of all connected is absolutely vital for lowering the cost of acquisition and raising the level of prominence. So I'm kind of explaining as I go along, but get this right. You have a business conversation, you ask some very simple questions along the way, which will drive you to want to know more inside ads, and then specifically have this 10-point checklist. Let's go and have a look at that.